Okay, I can just leave it on the first page, I guess. All right, so we're all set with so far so good.
Or you can bring the agenda if you want, today's agenda, what we have.
I could do, but I think
Jana,
let
if
people
you
just
put
join.
today's agenda now, please, and then put Shamin as a place of worship later on, that will be better, please.
Okay, I'll just bring it over to this computer.
Just for everyone's information, we are going to record this presentation as well. So
Yeah, that's fine.
While we are all having a technical hitch and trying to sort it out, are you all sitting comfortably? Have you got the glass of water with you? So then you can drink it as well and take it a chill pill.
We all fine.
You can unmute the governance party.
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Can people see the agenda?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
It's a mute no button. See.
So if everybody in, can we start Gayatri Mantra or something?
Yeah, just a minute, Shashikant bhai, just waiting for a few seconds just and then we will start.
All right, okay.
Rona, have you got most of everybody here?
Have I got what? Sorry, Shabet.
Have we got most of the people into our
We've
Zoom
got
meeting?
22 people in the room. So I think the total number that the agenda has been sent out to are 32 who are the registered ones.
Okay.
So there are about 10 who might still join. Plus there are a few others that Trupti Ben also added on later. So
right. Shall we just give few seconds, Ramesh bhai, and then we can start?
Yes. Would you like me to say the prayers, Harsha?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Just let me know when you want me to start.
Okay, that's fine. I think we'll just give 1 or 2 minutes and then we can start the prayer and everything, yeah?
Okay, that's fine.
I think Ramesh bhai, you can start the prayer now and then I will let the people come in if they want to come afterwards.
Okay, fine. Okay, namaste everyone. I'll just start with a small prayer. You can join if you wish to. Om Tu Sahanau Buntu Sahaviryam Karvavai Tejasvinavadetamastu Om Shanti Shanti Om Bhurvuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam
भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यः प्रचोदयात्।
शान्तिः। हरिः ओम् श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः।
Ramesh Patni.
Thank you very much, Ramesh Bhai, for
Thank
saying
you.
the prayer. Welcome to you all to tonight's Zoom meeting. I'm sorry that we can't be at the face-to-face, but this is the best we can do. So the heads off to the technology, and let's have the event about the hate crime, also the places of worship, security funding scheme and everything, and all the information and all the knowledge you will be sharing here. And if you got any question answer ready, then we have got a expert onto our panel, then they will be able to answer your queries. So without ado, I think Trupti Ben is not here because of her physical health, but she's with us with the spirit and everything in all the time. So I wish Trupti Ben a speedy recovery. And then without further ado, please, are you all comfortable? Can you hear? Everything is clear?
Yeah.
Thank you. So if there is any issue or anything, people can either raise a hand or put it onto the chat line. So Punitji, Shona can pick up a message. And if you can't hear or if there's any difficulty, we can try to amend or try to adjust with your.
On the chat, you have to press that button. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, right. So what we are going to do is, first of all, we have got a hate crime officer who is a Superintendent Wahid Khan, and he's from the London Metropolitan Police. And then he will mention all about the hate crime, about the talk about that. And you can ask, what is a hate crime? How do you definition? What is the definition? What you need to do? So please keep your questions small, fruitful, so then people can understand and then can take the decision as well. So Shona, have we got the Wahid Khan with us, please?
I don't know as yet. Punitji might know because he's letting in.
Hello, good evening. Yes, I am here, but I'm not sure if you can see or hear me.
Yes, we can see you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay, so I'm going to start really from the basics here. And before I do, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's really a good opportunity to come and speak to you and hear from you about your experiences of policing, your experiences of hate crime. And I'm really interested to try and hear about some of the questions you have. So there'll be some talking that I will do in the beginning, but most of the time I want to dedicate to listening to what your experiences are and any questions you have for me. So as has already been said, my name is Wahid Khan. I'm a superintendent in the Metropolitan Police.
Yeah.
And someone talking.
The agenda is on the screen. How do we remove that? It's on the left-hand side.
Sorry, by just a minute, okay? Because
okay, yeah, that's okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So hopefully you can see me now. I'm not sure if you can. Right. So my name is Wahid Khan. I'm a superintendent based within the Metropolitan Police. My day job as such, so where I'm normally based, is within East London. So I cover the boroughs of Newham and Waltham Forest, if you know it, in East London. So that's where I work there. But as well as being that in my day job, I'm also responsible for, across London, I'm what they call a lead responsible officer for hate crime. So that means that when it comes to hate crime, that is my kind of area across London, whichever part of London it is. So I'm hoping that if you have any questions around hate crime or any experiences that you want to share or any questions you have around how we police such matters, I'm hoping that I'll be able to answer them, or if not, at least be able to point you in the right direction of someone that can. So I can't share this on the screen, sadly, but I'll talk you through some of the information that we would want to share with you if we were here in person. And obviously it's a shame that we can't do that, but at the moment it's the way we can do it. So hate crime. What is hate crime? And I know that everyone will have their own views about what constitutes a hate crime. But essentially, we follow a definition which is provided for us. And I'll read it to you and then I'll focus on the main bits. So a hate crime is any criminal offense which is perceived by the victim or any other person to be motivated by, and these are the points, hostility or prejudice because of their race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, or perceived disability, or transgender. So basically, I think the way to try and summarize that would be that if anyone, not just the victim, but if anyone who is there or knows about an incident that's happened, if they feel that it's a hate crime, then it's one that we will investigate, and we will consider it as such to start with. Obviously, the circumstances may change, but that's essentially the starting point for us. Now, as you have heard, or as you know, recently in the last couple of years, policing for London has changed fundamentally. We've transformed the way that we provide a service for London. And that's been done similar to other forces across the country. Now, in London, what we've done in the past, there were 32 boroughs. And we followed that 32 boroughs in our policing model. So there would be 32 distinct borough commands, and they would all be responsible within themselves for their own areas. What's happened in the last couple of years, we've moved away from that, and we now have merged some of those boroughs. And instead of having 32 policing areas within London, we now have much less. We have we now only have 8 such areas. And that's what we've done, is merge some areas. So in east side of London, for example, we've merged Newham and Waltham Forest. So I now cover 2 boroughs. You have in West London, you have 3 boroughs that have merged. So depending on which part of London we're in, a decision has been made to merge some of the resourcing. So what that means on the practical level is that where we had, I don't know, 100 officers, for example, in one borough, now you would have that one borough of 100 officers, plus you'd have another 100 from the neighbouring borough, and those 200 in total will now be able to be responsible for the whole of that merged new entity, which we call a BCU, a command unit. So that's how we are now structured in the police. So hate crime, and I know everyone will have their views around what the police do and don't do when it comes to hate crime. The thing I want to say is that from a policing perspective, we always start from that definition, the one that I just spoke to you about. So if you feel that is a hate crime, then we will look at it and we will consider the matter as such, and we will see where the investigation goes. Now, I don't want to go through too many statistics, because I know, statistics can be read in many different ways. It depends on how you look at them. But essentially, the one thing I would say is that when I look at the statistics, and they're on my screen that I'm looking at here while I speak to you, but basically there's an upward trend in the number of offences being recorded. So we know that there's an increase in hate crime, and that's been on the increase certainly in the last 12 months. Now, there's lots of reasons behind that. I can't give you a definitive answer on which one it may be. It may be a combination of factors. So it may be that people are becoming more aware of what hate crime is. It may be because social media is making awareness more. It may be because we've tried to focus in terms of increasing our training for our officers, so they become more aware of what hate crime is. It can be a number of factors, but essentially we know that there's an upward trend in the number of hate crime that are now being brought to our attention. So that's one thing that I wanted to say. Now, we have safeguarding units within each of those command units. So remember I told you there were 12 BCUs across London. And within those command units, each of them has a dedicated safeguarding unit. And those safeguarding units, in addition to looking after children, vulnerable adults, and so forth, they also will look at hate crime. So the part of their role is to look at what was considered motivated, or where there's a hate crime element to it. We also, within each of those BCUs, the 12 BCUs, there are what we call hate crime liaison officers. So those are officers that will be the kind of hub, the central point of contact for that command unit. So whichever BCU, whichever part of London you live in, there will be someone who will be your local contact for hate crime. They will work in conjunction very closely with your faith officer, if you have one for your area, or maybe more than one, and with the local community as well, in terms of explaining and sharing our understanding of what hate crime is and how we can work together. Because we know, we can look at all the statistics that I have here, but the point is, statistics are only as helpful as the public that provides it to us. So if we don't have your confidence, if you don't trust us with that information, if you're not coming forward and you're not reporting that hate crime, then the statistics are meaningless. They're not providing us with what we need. The trust in terms of having the confidence from you as members of our local communities to come to us and engage with us around hate crime and how we can investigate it, that would be really helpful. Now, obviously, when we talk about hate crime, we need to talk about online hate crime. We need to talk about the cyber world, what happens on the digital world. So I guess the simplest way to put it is that whatever happens online is treated as validly as what may happen in the real world. So some people think that if they say stuff online, it's treated differently. It's not. If you say words, or if you commit, if you commit words on the keyboard that are put onto your Twitter account, onto your social media account, they are as validly investigated when it comes to hate crime as anything else. So I think some people don't understand that, but hate crime is valid across, it will be investigated whether it's across social media, whether it's across digital platforms, or wherever it might be. Now, I talked a little bit very quickly around kind of the barriers that we have, the issues why people might not report the hate crime to us. And we know the statistics that we have aren't the full picture. They are just a snapshot. They don't reflect what we know truly happens out there. Some people, for whatever reason, there'll be a hate crime incident, but they won't report it to us. And that's something that we're trying to work on. What can we do to overcome that? And we know that some people either apathy, they just feel that the police won't do anything about it. Some people, they fear, I don't know, might be retaliation or speaking to the police. It might be the culture. Some people feel that that's just how it should be. They accept it and they shouldn't, absolutely not. There could be a mistrust. There could be a language, maybe they're not able to communicate, or they feel they can't communicate. But as the police, we have different ways of, there are interpreters that we can use. So there are things that we can do, but we need people to come to us. Now, the final thing that I wanted to just mention is the policing website. So if you go to met.police.uk, on there, there's a section called Find Officers in Your Area. So if you go into that section, you can type in your postcode. And what happens is it will provide you with the details for your local officers and how you can contact them. And that's really helpful because that's your starting point in terms of how we can help you. So we have local ward officers. Within each borough, there are a different amount of wards. Each ward will have its dedicated ward officers. Separate to that, you might have a faith officer. Separate to that, there might be a hate crime liaison officer. And separate to that, you'll have all of the other assets and resourcing that policing has. So I would encourage you all to go onto the Met Police website, and on that, just look for the bit that says find officers in your area. Click on your postcode, type it in, and it will give you the name of the team, how you can contact them. In fact, some of them may be having virtual meetings with local communities, and there's no reason why you can't take part. There is something that I should mention. Some people, no matter what the police do, just do not feel comfortable approaching the police. And we know that that can happen. So we work with a number of national partners and local partners to provide options. So if people feel they can't come directly to the police, they can go to our partners. So there are organizations that you may have heard of, such as Stop Hate UK, Stonewall, Inclusion for London, Tell Mama, Catch. These are all national organizations that you can go to. If you want to, you can go to your MP, you can go to, if it's a young person, they can go to the school teachers. Go to someone, as long as it's reported, is raised, we can look into it. Ideally come to us, but if you don't feel comfortable, I know that that's other ways of doing it. I think I've spoken enough. I'll keep quiet now just for any questions you have around hate crime. Thank you.
Hello. Hello,
Hello.
Yeah, I'm from Bolton, Mr. Merchant from Bolton.
Hello.
And we applied last time in August 2019.
Yeah.
And they refused us, and they didn't give me any grant. We applied just for 3 things about the CCTV, lighting, and we need intercom system because we don't have any intercom or anything like that. And
okay.
We had also DOCO report. You know DOCO? Outgoing DOCO means they say that it is designing out crime officer.
Okay. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, so that DOCO, we had a report and everything from Bolton, and they refuse us. So can we apply again?
So
and if we can apply with the same application, or we have to do new one, Or is the DOCO officer change every time, or the same DOCO officer will come?
So the application for funding, which I think you're talking about, that funding application needs to go to the Home Office. That's not something that we can help you with as the police. We have a role to play. So what we can do is, you know, that DOCO that you mentioned, that Designing Act Crime Officer, they can have a role in help providing you with the statistics around the kind of vulnerability that you might have.
Yeah.
But the decision to grant the fund is not one that is one for us as the police. So if the Home Office that you've applied to have said no, then you would need to write to them again or contact them again. That's not something I'm afraid that I can help with. Unless you're saying that you want more information about your local area around the crime statistics that we can give, or you can get from the London Mayor's website as well.
Right. Because they say you can apply again in the next time, the next...
Oh, I see. So they've, it sounds like you're saying to me that they've closed their application. I mean, I don't know. It's not my expertise on that one, but if they're saying to you... Sorry, go on.
Sorry, it's Shamina from the Home Office. I'm very happy to answer any questions about the place of work.
I'm glad someone's here to pick that up. Thank you.
Of my presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so I would say that when it comes to the funding application, Shamima, thank you for coming in. So those applications can be referred to my Home Office colleague. Thanks for joining in there. Thanks. Okay, anything around policing generally, it doesn't have to be about hate crime, but is there anything that you want to speak about that you think I, as a senior officer in the Met Police, need to know about from someone, from your perspective?
Yeah. Wahid Bhai is here from the police superintendent, and he's here to explain and also to say that if anybody gets, according to with the temper and everything, hate crime incidents, then he's here to help you to understand what is a hate crime and how we can tackle, how we can contact the organization. So if any of our members who are at the Zoom meeting now have got any issues, they have been suffered that there is a hate crime incident, but they are not getting succeeded or they are not getting any joy out of police, the Wahid Bhai is showing all the different ways, and that is why he's here to answer your questions. So please keep your questions just related to hate crime incidents.
And feel free to ask your questions in Hindi or Urdu or any of the South. I can speak most of the languages as well. So
Dhanyavad.
Okay, Wahid, I've got a question.
Yeah.
We get a lot of travelers in our area, and they're very abusive. Is that classed as a hate crime?
So it depends. So when you say travelers are being abusive, do you mean in terms of being abusive about like race, religion, one of those factors, or just being abusive in terms of swearing?
Race and religion. Race and religion, both.
So yes. So if there's if like I said, so when it comes to hate crime, if you think that they are targeting you because of race, religion, or something like that, then absolutely you need to report it, and we will investigate it in that way.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think there is one question from Kaushik Chakrabarty, Dr. Kaushik Chakrabarty. He's asking, hello Wahid, can you give a specific example where hate crime against Hindu temple have been reported and how dealt with?
Well, it's a very good question, actually. So I'm just trying to think of a recent example involving a temple. I'll give you one where we've had, a church, for example, where we've had a place of worship that's been attacked. So we had one where a window was broken, but it was deliberately broken, and messages. I'll give you an example of a temple. So if they break your window, or they leave messages, or they leave something which is abusive towards the religion. So something like that, I would say, would be something we'd investigate as a hate crime.
Thank you, Wahid. Is there any other question from anyone just related to hate crime where you want Wahid to answer? Please either send it on the chat or just ask.
Yeah. It might be a case of where someone, if you look at on a temple, they might write on something, damage. They might criminally damage the window. They might scribble all over the graffiti and say something like "Go back home" or something like that, or "You don't belong here," whatever it might be. That kind of comment was certainly something we'd want to know about.
My name is Kishore. We are based in Neaston on North Circular, and hi. on our fence, we sort of, I won't say regularly, but time to time have graffiti put on there, and we do report it to the police as an incident that's taken place. And then subsequently we then ring the council, who then comes over and removes the graffiti. How would you approach that? I mean, when I say they are graffiti, they're not actually showing any messages to say, you know, go home or anything like that.
So if it's graffiti which is not related to hate crime, so if it's just graffiti where someone's, you know, drawing a picture because they just want to be an artist or whatever, if they're doing something which is still criminal damage but it's not hate crime related, then in that circumstance, I would say it's a combination of things. So your local, when the matter is recorded, your local ward officer, whoever covers the Neasden Temple, that local officer should make contact with you, come and get some statements, should review any CCTV you have, speak to any witnesses. Have you got a faith officer by any chance? Do you know? Have you?
To be honest, that's the first time I heard from you. That...
Oh, I see. So,
okay, so
right, I'll give you an example. So, I mean, I don't know, not all the beasts, I don't know, I can't speak for other beasts, other command areas, but in East London, the areas that I cover, I have a faith officer who will be responsible for all of the places of worship. So churches, temples, synagogues, mosques, whatever it might be. And their job is to particularly have, separate to any investigation, to have just ongoing dialogue with the local religious sites. So it's worth checking. I don't know whether, I mean, it sounds like if you have that, but that's one discussion. But what I would say is if it's a regular occurrence and you're having this happen all the time, then you need to put in designing out crime features, which is where the local council can either put lighting up or CCTV up, and then the police can have either patrols in the area or whatever it might be. But you need to raise it with, if you're not getting a response that you're happy with, you need to raise it in a supervisor or manager or someone more senior, or my counterpart, so whoever the superintendent is for Neasden.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Wahid Bhai, while somebody is thinking to ask a question, I'm sure you will be able to do, if you can send your presentation to us, so then we can pass all the faith officer and all those, you know, the criteria and the category and the method you have said. Then we can pass it to our...
I'll see if I can send it. Our file was quite strict, which is why I'm not using my laptop to speak to you. Right. Zoom isn't allowed in our system.
Okay.
But I'll see what I can do. But the point I would say is, as a starting point, if you don't know the information, go to the website, www.met.police.uk. In there, there'll be a section that says find your local officer, and just type in your postcode. It will give you everything you need.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just looking from the, you know, our community. Sometimes I'll speak in Hindi. उनको समझ में नहीं आता कि कहाँ जाना है, कहाँ नहीं जाना है. तो सबको तकलीफ होती है. और मंदिर में, you know, we are always law abiding and sincere citizens. So कभी-कभी मुश्किल हो जाती है. तो इसलिए पता नहीं चलता कि क्या करें, क्या नहीं करें. So that is why I was just saying that if there's a guidelines or protocol to follow, then it's they can look, or anybody can go on to that.
So मैं 3 बातें करूंगा. अगर या तो इमरजेंसी हो ना, तो फिर 999 हमेशा डायल करें. कोई फिक्र नहीं होनी चाहिए. अगर आपके पास टाइम है और इमरजेंसी ना हो, या तो इंटरनेट पे जाके वेबसाइट पे जाओ, या 101 फोन करें. 101 फोन करने से भी पुलिस से बात कर सकते हो. वो अपॉइंटमेंट बना के आपसे मिलेंगे. लेकिन सबसे आसान तरीका है इंटरनेट पे जाओ, क्योंकि फोन पे जब 101 करोगे तो शायद इंतजार करना पड़े.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Wahid, can I ask you a question, Wahid?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Right. I'm from Indian Community Center in Ashton-under-Lyne. About 3 years ago, we applied for this hate crime funding because there was consistent breakage of windows, and we had police records recording all these incidences. And we applied for the grant. It was quite substantial because it involved erect fencing and CCTV and other sort of items as such. But it was quite an extensive application because they were asking 6 quotations for each item, which we did. But we were refused. They said we had no evidence. So Wahid, can you sort of tell, if they have refused on the ground of evidence, there was the police evidence, what more evidence can we provide? So it can happen again in future if we apply and they say, well, there is no evidence of hate crime.
So I think that would probably be a question for Shamima from the Home Office.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I was trying to interrupt and say yes. It's the sort of question I'll cover in my presentation, and any questions relating to the places of worship scheme I'll cover. So please hold off on that.
Questions, but
Sorry, there are two questions. Sorry to butt into that. Wahid Bhai, I think what Kanti Bhai is asking is that despite reporting as a hate crime, that because there was a vandalism going on about, but I think it didn't register, or I don't know, it wasn't enough evidence. That's what Kanti Bhai is asking, that, you know.
What evidence is required?
So you're saying that when an incident is reported, when does it become a hate crime? Is that what you're asking? When is it reported as a hate crime? So what should happen is that if you say that this person has scribbled graffiti saying go back home or whatever it might be, then that would be captured initially as a hate crime. We capture it as a hate crime to start with. If the subsequent investigation later on shows that actually, for whatever reason, it isn't a hate crime, then that would be a later decision. But initially, it would be captured as a hate crime because that's what the initial investigation shows. And also what you, as the victim, or anyone that was nearby, thinks that it was a hate crime. So initially, we'll capture as a hate crime incident and then investigate to see where it leads to.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I must say here as well, Kanti Bhai, 3 years ago, the law, not law, but I think that maybe the procedure was very more stringent or something, Wahid Bhai. I think now the government and everything is changing. People are more coming forward with the hate crime, and you are putting a fine line between the different incident. Maybe the, you know, antisocial behavior and that kind of thing is just, it's a kind of a fine line.
So there's a lot more awareness. There's a lot more awareness about what hate crime is. And if we think back to, you know, the Brexit referendum in 2016, that was probably the, you know, one of the kind of spikes where awareness around what hate crime might mean, members of the Eastern European community and how they would have felt it. And then if we look at subsequent to that, incidents following the terrorist attacks in London, how members of the Asian community would have been targeted or felt that they were targeted because of their religion and their background. So hate crime, yes, it does spike in certain situations, and then it doesn't, and awareness will raise and fall with that as well. Yeah, and social media plays a huge part in that. Yeah.
I've got a question, Waseed. I think it's relating to what the gentleman was saying, is that it was reported to the police. Police have reported it in a way, but it wasn't acknowledged as a hate crime. So when he applied for a grant, it showed as if it wasn't a hate crime. So from our point of view, we want to sort of, how do we know that it is acknowledged as a hate crime and it is recorded as such?
I understand the question. Thank you. Right. So I think what I would say, I mean, I can't speak for particular incidents in other parts of London. I don't know the detail. But as a principle, what I would say is, if the matter is reported as a hate crime, if the person says, I've been targeted, or I think I've been targeted because of my race, religions, or whatever it might be, then the initial capture shows it as hate crime. The investigating officer should keep the victim or the, you know, people involved in the incident informed about the progress of that investigation. Okay. And then wherever it might lead to, the outcome, you should certainly still be informed as well. So if that outcome you weren't told about, then it's something you need to pick up with your local, you know, the police station or whoever the officer was at that time.
Okay, fine. And the way the rules that you work to in London, would that same rules apply throughout UK, or is it just akin to London?
So the principles are the same, but there are some variances in terms of legislation. So the commissioner, for example, in London, we've taken a decision that misogyny, for example, is not something that we will consider within hate crime. We will follow the legislation as it stands. I don't know whether, I can't speak for other forces and whether they will take the same view, but we follow the legislation. Whether people go beyond that in other forces and capture a wider perspective, I can't comment on.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thanks. Thank you.
Is there any more questions? I think what what we must say that Wahid Bhai, I think that, as I said, I think 3 years ago or before, that the things were not that clear. People were not more aware about it. Now the life has become much more easy because of all the different definition, and also people have become more aware about to speak up. They become a little bit bold, not that much, but a little bit bold to come forward and then say their concern and everything. So I think, with your help today, I'm sure the people who have joined in the Zoom have benefited. And if there is any issue or anything, maybe through the Trupti Ben or something, or through the Shamina, I think we can tackle a bit more and take it forward, the concerns, if our community members have them, if they have got it any. So I would like to say thank you very much by coming, and बहुत shukriya आपका, आपने अपना time निकाला, and we really appreciate that.
Shukriya bulane ke liye. Thank you very much. I hope the rest of the presentation goes well. I have to leave now. I'm really sorry, but I'm on a night shift, so I'm going to go and cover parts of London. I may end up in Neasden, and if I do, I'll pop by if I can. But thank you for inviting me, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Right. So I hope everybody understood that and grasped, and also took some points and wrote it down, all the procedure and everything. If you missed something, please ask us, and we are here to help you. So without any delay, we have got Ms. Shamina Rustam, who is here to take the lead. Shall I hand it over to you?
Yep, thank you. I have to apologise. I can't access Zoom on the Home Office computer, so I'm a voice. But a glamorous assistant is going to pull up my PowerPoint so we can all look at that instead of looking at what it says, call in user 1. So yes, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Shamina Rushton. I work in the Home Office, and I work on the Places of Worship scheme. So if we just go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to spend around 20-25 minutes just talking about the Places of Worship scheme. And at the end of that, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask some questions. If there's any issues with the clarity of what I'm saying, please just put it in the group chat. I can see that, and I'll try and, adjust what I'm saying, or I'll, be clearer. So what I'm going to cover is just a bit about the government's hate crime action plan, a bit about the Places of Worship scheme, how it's different this year, eligibility criteria, and how the scheme will operate. So next slide, please. Great. So the Hate Crime Action Plan, the government launched this in July 2016, and we refreshed this in October 2018. Hate crime as a policy area is led between the Home Office and the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government. The Hate Crime Action Plan contains 71 cross-government actions, focusing on 5 key areas, which are preventing hate crime by challenging beliefs and attitudes, responding to hate crime, increasing the reporting of hate crime, improving support for victims of hate crime, and building our understanding of hate crime. And the Places of Worship Security Funding Scheme is a key commitment in our Hate Crime Action Plan. Next slide, please. Thank you. So freedom of religious expression is one of our core shared values, and this scheme reflects the importance we place on that scheme. The scheme is designed to provide funding for the installation of protective security measures at religious premises that feel vulnerable to hate crime. So all places of worship and associated faith community centres, which are faith community centres sort of attached to or next to the place of worship where regular worship takes place, all those who feel vulnerable to religiously motivated hate crime are eligible to apply. And I mentioned that the Hate Crime Action Plan started in 2016. This scheme has been running, this is the 5th year the scheme has been running. So see on the screen, there's just some promotional material from year 3. Next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, this is the 5th year. Someone earlier on the call mentioned about getting quotes. So in the first 3 years of the scheme, what we asked was that applicants did go out and get quotes for the installation of measures. These would come back to us and we would review them. we understand that's quite a lot to do. So that's why we've changed the scheme. And last year we implemented a change, which means that you don't need to do that anymore. You'll apply to the scheme, and our contractor, ESOTech Limited, will be the ones to install the security measures. So in the first 3 years, when it was the first way, we approved grants worth approximately 1.5 million to 134 places of worship across England and Wales. And in the fourth year, which was last year, we awarded funding to 49 places of worship. So on the screen are just some examples of success. I'll just mention the mosque because I actually went to the mosque. The layout that they had was basically their car park was open, but was sort of at the top of a hill and sort of like a dip, and anyone could sort of wander into that dip, that area. People were dumping rubbish, homeless people were, going on, people were putting graffiti on that place, and it was really good for me to go to see what the funding did, because they were able to get funding for fences.
When they say on the Zoom they got phone numbers, if you dial them, what happens? You can only hear.
I'm sorry?
Can we just request for the questions to be kept for the end of the presentation?
Is that all right? I'll continue, or yeah?
Yeah, please, Shamina, if you just continue. Yeah.
That's fine. Great. So yeah, it was just really good for me to personally go see that mosque. They got funding, they got fences for their car park, and they just felt a lot safer. And it was just really good to see how the funding can really make a difference to how worshippers feel and make sure they feel safe. Next slide, please.
One second, it's frozen, just bear with me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go.
That's fine, thank you. So yeah, so as I mentioned, this is the 5th year of the scheme. Last year, following the horrific attacks at Christchurch, the fund was doubled to 1.6 million, and this year it's been doubled again to 3.2 million. So the scheme is currently open. It opened on the 16th of June. It's open for 8 weeks. We're about halfway through, and it will close on the 9th of August. Strongly advise you to submit your application as soon as possible. And at the moment, the outcome, we expect to inform applicants if they've been successful in January 2021. This is a guide, it's subject to change, obviously given the ever-developing situation of COVID-19. That's why it's just subject to change. And I will explain a little bit more about why it seems to be so, you're applying now, you won't find out to January. So I've seen a question about are grants available only to places of worship or to community centres as well. So if you go on to the next page, I will explain a little bit, but it's a good question. I will come back to that question. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, in previous years, applicants have had to provide their own quotes. That's not the case this year, similar to last year. And for those who've been through the process a few times, you will remember that you contact your Designing Out crime officer. This year, given that the impact of COVID-19, we're asking that you do not contact your Designing Out crime officer. This year, you only need to submit your evidence of your vulnerability to hate crime. And so then applications which meet sort of basic sifting criteria and progress to a quotation assessment appointment, you'll get a visit from ESOTech Limited, our contractor, and where possible, this will be accompanied by the Designing Out crime officer. And at that point, the Designing Out crime officer will be able to give you the recommendations for what security measures you need, and ESOTech will be able to quote for them. We've tried to make the scope of the scheme clearer to people. We often get questions about, is this allowed, is that allowed? So we've tried to make it clearer as to what is on offer. And we do ask that applicants comply with any ongoing lockdown measures, and that timelines are subject to change if there are any further lockdown measures imposed. of course, we all want it to go smoothly, but it's just to be aware that things might change just because of COVID-19. And next slide, please. Thank you very much. So, eligibility criteria for the scheme. We can only consider applications from places of worship and associated faith community centres. So what we mean by an associated faith community centre is a community centre which is sort of next to or part of or heavily associated with that place of worship, and where regular worship takes place in that faith community centre. Almost, you know, you can do other things, but we do require worship to be taking place there. The scheme is only for England and Wales, and your institution must be a registered charity. By law, most places of worship by law are required to register as a charity because of their charitable nature. There are exemptions to this. If your annual income is less than £5,000, for example, or there are other relevant exemptions. Information about exemptions is available on .gov.uk at the Places of Worship website. And if you are not a charity and would like to be, there's the opportunity to contact the Charity Commission to get that sorted as well. So probably sort of the thing you're most interested in is the vulnerability to hate crime. So what you need to apply with evidence of that. And examples can include photographs or reports of incidents at your institution or nearby, police reports of a hate crime or incident, a letter or email of support from your police force confirming you're in an area where, thank you, yep, some churches of England are exempt. They've actually recently changed that, but they're trying to get them all registered, but thank you. You can get a letter or email from police forces, and you can get evidence of particular tensions from sort of local authority community coordinators. On .gov.uk, Places of Worship website, there's a top tips document which sets out a bit more about evidence. These are just examples of it. And I should mention that when we mean vulnerability to hate crime, you don't have to have experienced it, you don't have to have reported the hate crime. Of course, we recognise that not everyone does report hate crime to the police. People aren't comfortable. So in those instances where you haven't reported it, you can still apply. You just have to be able to evidence it. So, for example, it's a hate incident in that case if it's not been reported to the police. You can still evidence it in the same way, photographs, explanations about it, surveys of your worshippers, just to provide information about it. Next slide, please. So what can you apply for? So you can apply for funding to cover the cost of up to 3 security measures from the list below. And when I mentioned that we've tried to clarify the scope further, this is what I mean. So you can get CCTV, it's got to be fixed cameras, they can't be moving. You can get fencing and or railings up to 2.1 metres. You can get gates, either manually operated or for pedestrians or for vehicles. Security doors, you can reinforce single glazed windows with anti-shatter film or bars or grills. Intruder alarms, locks, access control, video intercom systems and lighting. The funding is unable to cover security personnel or guarding, and it doesn't cover associated costs such as licensing, planning permission or ongoing costs such as maintenance and monitoring. The scheme can't fund retrospective payments, so if you've recently got something installed, the fund can't be used to pay for that. If you're looking to sort of refurbish things, it really depends on what it is you're looking for. If you've got CCTV, for example, which is 10 years old, it doesn't work, it's not fit for purpose, that can be considered in the scheme. We can replace it. If you've got brand new CCTV and you're just looking for an upgrade, the scheme can't help with that. Next slide, please. So, in every year, we've required that applicants provide 20% of the total cost. So, the security measures can cost up to £70,000. The Home Office will fund up to £56,000 of that, and the last 20% contribution will have to come from the place of worship. And this will have to be paid in advance of the installation of the security measures. On the page, you can see that the mean 20% contribution is around £6,600. So that just means that, on average, all security measures cost around £35,000, and the 20% contribution is around £6,600. That completely depends on the needs of the place of worship, if they need less or they need more. So that figure is there just to sort of help you visualize what your 20% contribution might look like. Next page, please. Thank you. So how the scheme will operate. So the first step is to collect your evidence of vulnerability to hate crime. You can complete our online application form and attach your evidence. Applications which pass a basic criteria and provide sufficient evidence of vulnerability to hate crime will progress. And that will progress to a quotation assessment, which will be undertaken by our contractor, ESATEC Limited, and that should be with a Designing Out Crime officer as well. After that, the quote will be issued to the applicant, and at that stage, you'll be able to make a decision as to whether you want to continue or not. And you will also have the opportunity to indicate if you want to continue with all 3 measures or just 2 of them or just 1, depending on the price. If you want to continue, your application will go to the Independent Advisory Board, which is made up of different faith representatives. And the board will make recommendations to the Home Office as to which bids to take forward. And then successful applicants will be informed. So I mentioned earlier that we're hoping to inform applicants in January 2021. So when the deadline closes in August, all the applications will then be considered. We're then hoping between sort of September and December that ESATEC and the Designing Out Crime officers will go and do those quotation assessment appointments. I'm hoping everyone will have a lovely Christmas, not affected by COVID-19, and then we'll be looking to inform applicants in January. Next slide, please. So if you wish to continue, your 20% contribution will need to be paid to ESATEC directly before installation works can begin, and you'll have a contract with ESATEC Limited. ESATEC Limited will then start installations from January 2021. Once everything is complete, the Home Office will undertake audit spot checks on a number of places to make sure the installation has gone smoothly, to make sure everyone is happy. You know, we want people to be satisfied with this. Additionally, on the application form, it asks if you would like to take part in an evaluation, which is undertaken by Ipsos Mori. This doesn't affect your application at all. It's just an opportunity for you to provide feedback on the scheme. And we do encourage you to provide feedback on the scheme, because that really helps us to understand, you know, how the scheme is being received, what we can do better. You know, it helps us to help you. And next slide, please. So what are some sort of key points to take away from this presentation? In the first instance, do not contact your Designing Out Crime officer. Make sure to include evidence of vulnerability to hate crime. The scheme, you know, doesn't cover antisocial behaviour or other criminality unconnected with hate crime. But of course, any crime can be a hate crime. And if you do have several instances of antisocial behaviour that you believe there's a hate element around it, there's a hate incident, that's fine. You can put that as long as you evidence it properly. You have to remember you'll need sufficient funds to contribute the 20% of the total cost. And we do strongly advise you submit your application as soon as possible. I'll hold my hands up. I'm the sort of person who does their homework last minute. So I know it's tempting to do it last minute, but it's important to try and put it in before then. What we don't want is for you to spend all of Sunday the 9th of August working really hard on that application, you know, and you're going right up to midnight and then you miss the deadline. Nobody wants that. And just to remember that if your application does progress and a quotation assessment appointment is scheduled, we do ask that you make sure to stick to that appointment subject to COVID-19. This will just help to keep things on track the timelines and make sure that we can get through this as smoothly as possible. Next slide, please. Yep, so if you want more information and obviously want to apply, just search for gov.uk places of worship security. Next slide, please. And on the next slide, there is also the link to the places of worship guidance. In the first instance, ESATEC Limited will be the first point of contact. So if you've got any queries, you can contact them on the email address there. That email address is also on .gov.uk. ESATEC will be happy to help you to answer any questions. If for whatever reason they're unable to, they'll refer it back to the Home Office and you'll get an answer, don't worry. If you require assistance with filling in your application form, you might be able to get this from a local authority community coordinator or from Strengthening Faith Institutions. There are other opportunities to get help as well, and I hope you do. I think the next slide, please. It might be the question slide. Is it the question slide? It is. Great. So that's the end of my presentation. And I'm very happy to take questions.
Samina, we have got a couple of questions on the chat. I'll just read out to you. Just a second. Paul. Sorry, so the first question is, are grants available only to place of worship or to community centers as well?
Yep, so as I mentioned, it is for places of worship and it is for associated faith community centers. So those associated faith community centers are ones sort of next to, attached to places of worship where regular worship takes place. And that definition is also on .gov.uk to remind yourself if you are unsure.
Thank you, Samima. That was the one question, and I've got, I think, another question. Just a second, my computer is playing up. So the next question is whether the place of worship security funding scheme covers security related to COVID-19.
So when you say security related to COVID-19, are you able to provide more information around that? Or because if you mean hate crimes that have been, or hate incidents which have been committed during the lockdown, sure. I'm not quite sure what you would mean though by security measures for COVID-19.
Krishna, do you want to ask the question elaborately? What do you mean by whether the funding scheme covers security related to COVID-19? So would you mind asking the question in details? No.
I'm afraid I can't hear anything. I don't know if someone's on mute.
I think nobody spoke up, so it's fine, Samima. Anyone has got any other questions for Samina to ask, please?
Shashikant Bhai was asking. Shashikant Bhai was asking.
Is it possible from Samina to get the presentation copy? Because it is everything we can, it is written in the presentation. So we missed a few points. So if it is possible, we can have the copy of this presentation.
Yeah, I'm very happy for the presentation to be circulated. That's no problem. Good. All of the information on the presentation is also on .gov.uk as well, though.
Right.
That's great. Thanks so much, Shamina, because I have a copy of the presentation, so we can circulate it to those people who want a copy.
Yes.
I think Varun has raised hand. Varun, do you want to ask your question, please?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. So how recent these hate crime incidents should be when we make an application? Isn't like, should it be in past 12 months or we can still make an application if it had happened, let's say 2 years ago, for example?
Yeah, there's no, we haven't specified a time limit on when these hate crimes or hate incidents should have occurred. It's really just about how well you evidence it. We get applications where it just states we had you know, we had some graffiti a few years ago, and that's the extent of the information we get. And that doesn't quite explain, you know, what has happened. But, you know, if we had a incident of hate graffiti, you know, 2-3 years ago, it made us feel very vulnerable. It was clearly a hate incident because it said, you know, X, Y, Z horrible things. That's fine. It doesn't matter about the length of time. You know, as long as you evidence and explain it. The only thing I would also state, though, is if you have hate incidents, only have hate incidents from, say, 10 years ago, your application might not be as strong as an application where they, you know, have experienced more recent hate incidents. That's what I would say.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Does it answer your question, Varun?
It does, yeah, thank you. It makes sense,
So,
yeah.
Another question on chat. Would you be able to or willing to provide us more info on the volume of application and percentage of successful applications?
Yeah, so I think for year 4, the year last year, we had 531 applications, of which 377 met the basic eligibility criteria to be considered. I don't know if I have, I do. So last year 29 Hindu temples applied, only 4 were successful, and overall, you know, over all 4 years, we've only had 49 applications from temples, and 9 have been successful. And you know, when you compare it to the amount of applications from other faiths we've had, for example, you know, we've had over the past 4 years over 300 from churches, over 300 from mosques. That's why it's really important, if you do feel vulnerable to hate crime, to put your application in. Does that answer your question?
Right.
I'm not sure what's the full name. So does that answer your question, Mr. HB or Miss? Okay, yes, he says yes. Okay, I think there was one more question. Let me scroll up. I missed that question. Okay, but in the meanwhile, Kantilal, you want to ask some question?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Last time I applied, there is a considerable departure regarding the rules. Last time we had to get evidence from the police. I'm glad that we don't have to get a report from the police, but any other evidence will be acceptable. Is this correct, Shamima?
Yes, I mean, if you can get evidence from the police, you should. If you haven't reported it to the police, obviously you can't get that evidence from the police. But even if you aren't able to get evidence from the police, if you can provide other evidence, that's important.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mike. The second question is, again, there is a departure regarding the quotations, because last time I applied, we got 6 quotations from private contractors. Am I right in understanding that USOTEC, is it USOTEC? Yeah, USOTEC will provide the quotation and they will actually install the security measures as well. Is this correct?
Yep, that's correct. We had feedback that asking people to get, 6-9 quotes, that's a lot of work. So now we just have one contractor who will quote you for the work and they install it.
Yeah. What about, Shamina, if their equipment is not compatible with what we want? Can we ask for a replacement or whatever is required?
I think it depends on what the equipment is and your needs. So when you have the quotation assessment appointment, the designing out crime officer will also attend. And the designing out crime officer will be able to make the recommendations as to what security measures are best for your place of worship and how best to serve that. So if you, I know that some places have, aesthetic needs. or they're grade listed or anything, the DOCO can help specify what's best for you, and ESOTech can, they understand those sort of needs, and they can try and, everyone can work together basically to provide you what's best for your place of worship. I hope that helps.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Thanks so much, Shamima. Thank you.
So just to, I'm sorry to come in, Kantibai and Shamina. So Kantibai, you said 3 years ago you had issue with the hate crime and you were not successful. Shamina, is he okay if he applies now?
Yes, if you still feel vulnerable to hate crime, we do encourage you to apply, even if you've applied in previous years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shamima. There's one more question on the chat. What other things does the POW funding covers? I know it's security camera. What else equipments and things are included to secure our place of worship?
Yep, so there's quite a few things. This is all on .gov.uk, so if you don't remember, or if I talk too fast, it's all on there. But in addition to CCTV, it's also fencing or railing. You can get gates both for people and for vehicles. You can get doors, you can get locks. You can reinforce your windows with anti-shatter film or bars or grills. You can get intruder alarms, access control, so fob or keypad. You can get sort of video intercom systems, and you can get lighting that goes on the building.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers the question. Any other question? You can just raise your hands on the video, or you can just use the raise hand option on the Zoom. I think Tarangji has raised hand and Varun has raised hand. So I'll first go to Tarangji. Please, Tarangji.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Samijay, my question is that since you've had a lot of experience in looking at the grant applications, can you share with us what makes a successful application?
Yeah. So I do think you've got to talk after me about what makes a successful application as well. But definitely from the Home Office point of view, the applications which score the best are the ones that really evidence what has happened and how. And I can give an example. We had one application, and it's a really frustrating one, and it's really stuck with me as an application, because all they applied with was, so on the application form, you can upload evidence, and you've also got the opportunity for you to write about what you've experienced. And in that section, they put, they had a big incident last December, and 15 police officers had to come and sort it out. And that's what they wrote. And the Designing Out Crime officer in their report also said, referring back to that big incident in December 2019 or 2018 or whatever, must have been 18, sorry. Referring back to that incident, we've now looked to provide them with security measures. And that was the extent of what they wrote. And that's, to read that is really disheartening, because clearly something has happened to that place of worship. Something big has happened, and that's why they've had 15 police officers go to sort it out. But there was no information about what happened. I don't know if it was graffiti. I don't know if it was people saying horrible things. I don't know if it was, assault, a fight, anything. So the applications which are successful are the ones that take the time to explain what has happened. Similarly, what we get is we get applications which just say, here's my crime reference number. And that's it again. From that, there's no information as to what has happened, and we have no way of checking what's happened from that. So you really need to just be clear, what has happened. If you know why, or you think you know why it's happened, possibly, there's a hate element to it, write that down. If you have pictures, provide context around it. Again, we get applications where they go, all they upload is a picture of a smashed window. And it's not clear if that smashed window, it was an accident, or, it's antisocial behavior, or if they've been targeted. So it's really about, again, it's really about evidencing it in writing. You know, you're all very young. You've all recently done your GCSEs. You know that you need to make it really obvious as to what has happened, and that's what we're looking for. The successful applicants, those applications have just explained it really clearly, and that's what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Tarangji?
It
I think
does,
Varun,
yes. Yes, thank you very much. Thank
Varun
you.
has raised his hand again. Varun, over to you again.
Yeah, I've got actually two quick questions. So if the application gets rejected, my first question was, do we get to know the reason behind it? And the second question is, does it leave any bad footprints on the name of the charity on which you've made an application?
So if you want feedback on your application, write in to our email address or write into Ecotech and they'll forward it to us. You can ask for feedback. Because of the amount of applications we get in, we can't individually provide feedback when we inform people, but if you want it, write in and we'll try and provide it to you. I should mention that the person who applied for the scheme needs to be the one asking for the feedback because of GDPR. We need to make sure we're only talking about the application of the right person, but you can ask for feedback. And secondly, when you say about bad footprint or anything, in terms of the scheme, you are eligible to apply again. It doesn't stop you from applying. It doesn't get, you know, put to the charity commission or anything. It doesn't go anywhere else. It's only really, you know, kept in relation to the scheme. So it doesn't go anywhere else. I hope that answers that.
Okay, yeah, okay, great, thank you.
I can see one hand raised. Praveen Khimani ji.
Yeah. So just one on before you apply, we obviously went to the website where you actually type in the details for your application, but basically it says fill in these details and then we'll take you to the next page. So my question is simple. In preparation for what you need to fill in on the forms, if we can't actually see a copy of the form in its entirety, except just the first page, and so so is there a copy of the form which says this is the details required? So please make sure you have these details before you go to the website.
Good question. Unfortunately, we don't have a form or anything of it. Can you hear me? I'm not turning off the screen. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, there isn't a form available. All the information that you need to put in, you know, it's about, you know, the name of the place of worship, the address, who the contact is, etc., your charity number. It's a lot of the sort of information you'll need to put is on .gov.uk. Like it explains, you know, your eligibility criteria. So the questions are around that. But what a lot of people do is they just answer the question. You know, they put like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. in the questions and just use that as an opportunity to go through the form and see what it looks like. And you can do that. Additionally, if you also want to do the form properly from the beginning, there's the opportunity to save your form and you can come back to it. So if you, for example, you go through it and you're fine with all the information and you get to a stage where it goes upload your evidence and you go, oops, I haven't got that ready. You can save it at that point. You'll get a link. I think it emails you a link and then you can come back to it when you're ready and upload your application. I'd only just as a reminder tell you, you know, put it in before the 9th of August. That's all.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Last year did allow saving. Sorry, just reading the question. It did allow saving. I think sometimes it's not quite clear, but definitely last year and this year you can save the application and come back to it.
Okay. Is there any other question? Anyone? Okay, I hand over to you, Shona ji, to take over the next.
Thank you. Just Puniji, let me just say thank you very much, Shamina. And I think I would just listening all our members and also your point. I think there is a little bit of not confusion or misunderstanding, but not clarity is not there. So maybe if you take it as a feedback onto the Home Office that we are a kind of a common people, we do temple things and it's all voluntary based, and sometimes we are not in depth knowledge of about applying properly as well. So I think if there is some kind of a guidelines or something there, that will be helpful for all of us to fill in.
So on if you mean guidance, .gov.uk does try and explain things. I understand it's not always clear from that, and that's why it's really good to be able to come to these sort of sessions and explain things more fully. But if you do have feedback about how we can make it clearer and more accessible, definitely to smaller communities or temples, because I understand not everyone has all the volunteers. Do provide feedback. Tripti has my email address, but also on the application form is an opportunity for you to provide feedback, and it's really helpful for us to have that. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Shamina, for your time and such a valuable information you have given. And I hope all our members who are the Zoom members today, that they have understanding of the place of worship security funding, and they will definitely apply, and then they'll follow the guidelines as well. Thank you, Shamina.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shamina.
Okay. So I think now we have got Hitesh Bhai, who is a president of Sri Ram Mandir, Birmingham. And he has applied for this PWS scheme, and he's a successful applicant. So we have got his wording, or what he's going to say. How did he apply? Or people can ask the question, what did he put in? How long it took him? What did he write? Anything. So Hitesh Bhai, over to you.
Namaste, and thank you very much. Okay. Let me reassure people that if you failed 1 year, try again, because I did fail the first time. I applied in 2018 and failed. I applied again in 2019 and was successful. So I've been through both the processes, the one where you had to get multiple quotes in from vendors, and they had to be secured by design vendors as well, which is incredibly difficult to find. But last year, yeah, the process was very simple. However, it is, I do have some criticisms of this system, and I think the Home Office needs to unfortunately listen to some of the points I'm going to make. It is a bit disjointed. The web portal, I found very difficult to use, to be honest. Although the form is actually very straightforward, you fill it in, and when you go to the next page, you can't actually go back and edit the page you just filled in, because you've seen the next set of questions and you said, actually, something else needs to be added to the previous question. Yeah, you couldn't actually go back. Now, about the saving of the form, as far as I could remember, the form didn't allow you to save. I had to restart several times, to be honest, and redo the form. Regarding the DOCO report, right? Currently, the funding I got, the workmen in my temple right now, they're doing the install right now. It was August last year we applied. Then, for one reason or another, with the PERDA, the elections and whatnot coming through, and Brexit and everything else, it all got delayed and delayed and delayed, and it's actually the work's only just started, and they've only just finished the CCTV system. The doors are coming in, and the access control. I would advise everyone who's going to apply, please, please, please get as much detail into the DOCO report as possible. I say this from my own experience. The DOCA report for us, for the doors, said LPS 1175 SR2 rated doors. Well, I'm no expert on doors. I didn't know what the heck that meant. When they came to do the measurements just a few weeks ago, and I saw the picture, which was the first time I ever saw a picture of what the door they were going to put in was, it made my front entrance of the mandir look like prison cell block H. It was a steel door with a little portal on it. Yeah, not good. I complained. And Esotec eventually got a fully glazed door in, but it's not an LPS 1175 SR2, it's a PAS 24 standard. But yeah, please, everyone, I really do implore you, get as much detail in as possible. And other little things like when you get the guys round measuring up and stuff, when he says, we will supply you a monitor for your CCTV, ask them to specify the size of the monitor. The monitor we currently have in our old analog 25-year-old system is a 56-inch JVC screen. They actually have only supplied a 22-inch little monitor. And every time I say something to Esotec, he always comes back as saying, out of scope. It's not what the budget said. It's not what the budget said. However, the budget was never ever given to me. All I get is a figure saying this is how much it'll cost and this is your contribution. No breakdown of the works is given to you at all at any stage. And Esotec constantly goes back and says to me, oh, the doco said that, the doco said that. However, everyone who applies, please go around with a fine-tooth comb and make sure everything you want is absolutely specified and written down in your in the doco report and the survey report. It has to be written down. If it's not written down, it ain't going to happen. Word of mouth is no good at all in this situation. You're dealing with civil servants. It's not going to work. Yeah? The other thing is, I really got to say this. I think Esotec, personally, is taking the Home Office for a ride with their quotations. The stuff, the CCTV that's been put in, the price I was quoted and what's been put in, you would have thought would have been a very high-end system. It's not a high-end system, it's a mid to budget range system. So everyone, please, think about what is actually going to be put into your place of worship. Especially if you're applying for front doors. Front doors are your entrance which people will see. And you can't have prison cell block H. Yeah. Having said that, yeah, I've got the funding. And I paid for it, paid by 20%. And yeah, it's coming along. I've still got, I had the door people around on Wednesday, and they're going to sort of order the doors in now, eventually. Regarding the actual application, I had 2 hate crimes in 2018. I documented them, had the hate crime references, had the photographs. I put everything in. However, I was rejected. I put the same thing in again in 2019, and it was approved. So it seems, you know, I don't know why. Okay, 2018, I got rejected. 2019, it got approved. It was exactly the same information. But one of the things which you must say is perception. You must put your perception down, because I think, I can't remember the guy's name at the very beginning, the one guy from Met Police. The definition of hate crime is a perception. If you perceive it to be a hate crime, it is hate crime. Hate crime can be almost anything. Somebody walking into your temple and saying, you're all heathens, you're all going to hell. that's a hate crime. But you may not be reported to the police because most of us don't. Yeah, most of us don't. We just say, yeah, whatever, and he just goes off site. If somebody leaves a packet of kebabs or something, meat, on your foyer, that's a hate crime. We're vegetarian places, in places of worship. If the women going to Navaratri and functions feel vulnerable walking into the place of worship, that's a hate crime. They feel hate, yeah? If they're getting leered at and jeered at whilst they're walking in their finery into the place of worship, that's hate crime. We often think of hate crime as being some damage or graffiti. It's not necessarily damage or graffiti. And the other thing is documentation. We are generally very, very bad at documenting things. Yeah, we must keep a log. If something happens, even if you don't report to the police, keep a log. Someone in your temple, keep a log of what's going on. That log becomes a record of what's going on. A lot of these things happen are minor things. We had something come through the post. It was a disc. And the disc was not very, very nice to watch. There was a letter, there was a company that CD. All of these things were reported to the police, by the way, in the West Midlands Police. Although the Met Police guy said, yeah, they'll report as hate crime, I actually had to struggle to get it reported as a hate crime. They said, why do you want to report it as a hate crime? I go, I feel it's a hate crime. I perceive it as a hate crime. Therefore, I want to report it as a hate crime. You have to get bold. There's no more nicey. In your application, say so if there's a specific community that's targeting you. Say it. I said it in my application. We are too secular and too nice, and we water it down. It doesn't help us. You really have to tell the truth as it is. Don't be afraid of the truth. Yeah. What else is there? I needed to say. Oh yeah, there's a survey. Now there was a survey that came out, an independent survey. But I was actually very reluctant to fill out that survey, the independent survey. The reason being is no decision had come from the Home Office. So I wasn't going to fill out a survey until I knew what the decision was. I think the survey should come out after a decision's been made, so at least successful applicants or other applicants can then fill out the survey, knowing that it won't prejudice their application. Yeah, I was talking to the ESOTech guy this week, and they will constantly say it's the DOCO guy. DOCO guy said that. The DOCO guy did this, and I understand from this year, and also from the DOCO guy I spoke to, and and from the ESOTech guy I spoke to, and from the conference this evening, that the DOCO and ESOTech will come round together. But you must have somebody who's really, really competent who goes around with them and make sure everything is specified. I cannot stress to you enough how much that specification is required. Yeah, because if it's not written down, it ain't happening. Yeah, if you want 2 monitors, you must say 2 monitors. If you want the size of the monitor, you must say it must be a 15-inch monitor. Yeah. I think I'll stop there and just leave it at that at the moment. If I remember anything else, I might come in again.
Thank you very much, Hitesh Bhai. While everybody is thinking about their thoughts and going to ask you questions, I'm sure there'll be loads of questions because you have very well put it, and I think you have explained as well about the feedback and all the nitty-gritty and the finer lines of the things that what you can get and what you should get. I think all of us should be courageous. Not courageous is the right word, but I think we should be bold enough to apply for the funding. And also, like Hitesh Bhai has said, that we should be bold enough to say that what is mentally also it can be hate crime. If we are not feeling safe to walk into that with the Navratri, with our Indian attire and everything, that can be put as a kind of a hate crime. So there are a lot of things that are there that they can feel it, you can put down as a hate crime and everything. And I think we should have our clear perception of the hate crime, how we feel that we are not mentally feeling safe walking into the temple with in that particular area. That is also comes as a hate crime. So Puniji, have we got other questions?
Does anybody have questions? You can raise your hand if you have a question for Hitesh Bhai.
I have.
Yes, shall I let Kantilal go first?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. First of all, may I thank, congratulations to Hitesh Bhai for securing the funding. Since it's a Hindu temple, it applicable to us as well. Hitesh Bhai, what was the, can you hear me? What was the hate crime basis you applied the funding for? What was the hate crime?
Well, we had three incidences. Yes, three incidences. Both were breaking of windows, and the window breakings happened within a 2-week period. One of the windows that was broke, well, both the windows that were broken are double glazed windows to start with, so they're not easy to break. But one of the ones that was broken was a first floor window where the pundit's flat is, where his kitchen is. Yeah. Luckily at the time he wasn't there, so he didn't get hurt. And the other one which I mentioned was a DVD and a letter that was sent to us in the post.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you.
Is that okay, Kantilal ji?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Shashikant Bhai, you wanted to ask one question, Shashikant Bhai?
Yeah, just regarding, you mentioned about the DOCO. And Shamina said that you don't need to go to DOCO, just provide the evidences, and then you can stately apply for the application. So should we go for next, what about the DOCO? We go afterwards or we go for before?
Oh, okay. I think I've not read this year's criteria fully, but if I understood what people have said this evening, you apply online for your application. You want CCTV, you want fencing, or whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the evidence, then they will look at your application. At some point, a man from ESOTEC and a man from DOCO will come to your place of worship, and they will walk around the place.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's the order is going to happen, unless the Home Office can correct me. I think that's what's going to happen, because the application process is open. The application process is open, so you can now say, I want CCTV, right? And say, here's the reasons why I want CCTV. Then at some point, the Home Office, the ESOTEC guy and the DOCO guy will come around, walk around your place and agree with you what you need doing. And at that point in time, they will also say things like, you need a camera here, you need a camera there. Now, if you don't agree with those camera locations, you need to say so at that point in time, because once he puts X's on a plan, they become X's on a plan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because first time when we applied, we had a DOCO report as well. We sent everything in August 19, and they refused and they rejected.
Yeah.
So, and at this time when Shamina said that you don't need a DOCO report and just you apply without the DOCO report. So just wondering, what we should do.
So Shashikant Bhai, guidance is clear. What Hitesh Bhai says, what Shamina says, you apply online, and then the DOCO and then the ESOTEC person will come, and then but you have to take with the fine tooth and a comb, and then take it what you want, what you expect from them, and have a clear clarification and then move forward.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hitesh, and thank you very much, Varsha.
Thank you. Right. Is there any more questions, Shona?
Yeah.
I think Tarangji has a question.
I have a question. I think the most important thing is that language in how you write the application is so important. If you're not quite clear as to how to write, then perhaps a couple of you sit together before you type the information in. But the language is very important. And a question to Hitesh. Hitesh, when you reported the incidents to the police, can you share with us the problems that you had in recording it as a hate crime?
Yeah, it was nearly 2 years ago. I'm trying to think now. Had a few beers since then. I mean, they did visit us. First of all, they didn't visit us. That's the first thing. Okay? West Midlands Police did not visit our site. Everything was done over the phone. And when it was reported, I said, I want to record it as a hate crime. They said, why? Because I think it was a hate crime. I believe it's a hate crime. And I feel it's a hate crime. And they go, do you really want to? I go, yes, I do. And I go, this is the second, there was the first incident, then there was a second incident. Now, I want to read a few weeks, well, actually a month or so beforehand, another faith building in Birmingham had a window broken, right? The response there was 4 or 5 police cars turn up, reassurance patrols were made, and Twitter messages going out from West Midlands Police reassuring the public. And that was a window being broken at another place of worship. Not a Hindu place of worship, another one. Yet, a few weeks later, my place had a window broken. I had no visit. Not a single police officer visited us. It was all done over the phone. And all I had was a text message saying, here's your crime reference number.
That is what they do.
Are there other questions? Tarangji, is that all right?
Yes, I think the moral of the question, the answer is that ensure that it is reported, and it is reported as a hate crime. If it's not, then pursue it so you get the right kind of attention that you deserve and need. Because at the moment, I don't think the police force are recognizing Hindus hate as a crime. They don't believe it. They only feel that only one faith is having all this hate crime. And it is important that we do speak up and let the police know that we suffer from hate crime as well. So it is important that when you do report it, follow it up, that it is recorded as a hate crime, and you do get an incident number. So you know that it's not just a verbal conversation, but it is officially done. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
That's excellent, Tarangji.
Sorry, I think the figures that were given earlier, 29 Hindu organizations applied and 4 were successful, says it all. What Tarangji is saying about how hate crime within Hindus, places of worship, is viewed compared to other faiths.
Thank you so much, Hiteshji. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I've got one question.
Yes, Kantilal bhai.
In my experience, there was one international incident, and most of the white community in my neighborhood mistook for a mosque. They thought it was a mosque, and they damaged our windows and the doors and so on. So what I would like to request to the homage of the police should educate there is a difference between mosque and a temple. It's very, very important, because hate crime are mostly related to one community as opposed to another community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kantilal Bhai. I think it's important that, very importantly, that, any kind of hate crime cannot be allowed. I mean, that's where we have to take a stand, whatever the faith may be, absolutely and utterly no hate crime should be allowed. And it's a question of making the police definitely awareness of different faiths and understanding, so that the public are able to demarcate between one religion and another religion. That's very important. But first and foremost, there should be no hate crime. And we must do whatever we can do to, try and educate the general public definitely, as well as protect ourselves as best as possible.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Hitesh Bhai, yes?
Yes, Hitesh Bhai.
Yeah, I think the phrase I tend to use is, we don't want special treatment, we just want equal treatment. Yeah, the Hindu places of worship should be treated as equally as any other place of worship.
That's very correct. Absolutely. Every faith must be respected and have its own right and equal rights. That absolutely 100%. Spot on, Hitesh Bhai. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No.
Well, Shona, everybody is thinking about it. I think let's put it all in a concluding that Wahid Bhai said very nicely about the perception of hate crime. And also the Shamina had said about the security funding places of worship. And then we should all get awakened and then look into think what we should write and get help. And also with the Hitesh Bhai's experience and knowledge, in-depth knowledge about the DOCO and all the specification of the equipment and this and that, and what we should ask and what we are clear about. So I think first we need to educate ourselves that how we can apply for funding and what we need to do that. So I think it's the more brains are together, the better they work together. And I think maybe Hitesh Bhai, if you don't mind, I'm just taking liberty. If people want to ask your advice, would you be kind enough to give that advice and help?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you, Hitesh Bhai. So I think, I think it'll be like Shamina said, the 29 temple, out of that 4 only God. So Tarangji's, Hitesh Bhai's comment is there. And I saw somebody wrote as well that it's a shame that it is such an important information sharing stage we are standing and there are only few people have joined. So maybe next time, I think, if we can have more people with the talk of each other, if you can promote this kind of event, maybe we can put it again for it, and it's a benefit for our community and the wider community will get benefit from that. Thank you very much to you all. And I think if there is no another question standing or anything burning issue, I will just finish it up with the prayer. Is that okay with everybody?
I think Hitesh Bhai has just raised his hand.
Yeah, Hitesh Bhai.
Yeah, sorry. Before you conclude it, are you going to be taking a screenshot of participants?
Okay, that is a Shona has to take that. I am, or Punitji, I'm not savvy about that technology.
I will definitely take a screenshot. I believe Punitji is recording this as far as I'm aware, but I'm just going to take a screenshot as well.
Okay, so are all of you happy to have a screenshot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kanti Bhai, we can't see your face.
Can you see it now?
No.
If anybody does not want to screenshot, this is the time because I'm about to put us all on. Well, it's being recorded anyway by Punit. As we
can you see it now?
No.
Everybody okay?
Yes.
Right. Well,
Can
can I get a screenshot?
Can we get the copy of it as well?
Yes, certainly. Okay.
Thank you, Shona. We got such a good, wonderful, technological savvy person that we got the screenshot and Punitji's recording. So
yes,
all of us will be good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for coming.
Time.
I will just say the prayer and then we will finish with that, yeah?
Thank you.
Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti, Shanti. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just going to end the meeting. Thank you, everybody.